Welcome to the Wayfinder Podcast, hosted by So Far Ocean. In today's conversation, we'll be talking to AB Naga of Sing Fuels, where he's the regional supply manager for Africa, the Middle East, and India. Bunkering has always been a logistical exercise. Today, as familiar routes close off, operators find themselves calling ports in unfamiliar territory. Today's episode will go through what the supply map actually looks like today, what operators should know when choosing a supplier in unfamiliar territory, and how to build an actually resilient bunkering strategy. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
With disruption around the Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz forcing many operators to rethink routing and strategy, bunkering decisions have become much more than a routine procurement exercise. Today, we'll be assessing the bunkering options across Africa and the Middle East, how operators should assess unfamiliar suppliers, and what commercial operational realities matter most when rerouting around the Cape of Good Hope. To help us do that, we're joined by AB Naga from Sing Fuels. AB is the Regional Supply Manager for Africa, the Middle East, and India at Sing Fuels, and he's also on the African Regional Board of the International Bunker Industry Association. AB, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, obviously, an awful lot has been happening in the Middle East over the last 4 to 6 weeks. I'd like to paint a picture here. For owners and operators trading in and around the Gulf, how has the bunkering map changed in practical terms for them?
Interesting question. I think to start with, indeed, there are some drastic changes we have seen. We had two options or two categories here, ships which are already trapped inside the Gulf area, which are rotating, trying to search for safe location to get supplied. So we have seen volumes, of course, increasing in areas like Iraq. We have seen customers, clients are asking for prices in places like Kuwait, Saudi Eastern provinces like Dammam, Jubail, which normally in a normal trading day or even months, you may get one or two requests among thousands. So that was one category, which we worked at. And we understand the buyer's frustration because everyone is trying to find out on the price indications. However, the seriousness of taking a step in such location on a huge premium was not really there, especially that to be sure that the ship is going to exit the Gulf towards an open sea was never there till recently. The other category of customers, the ships, were about to approach the strait coming from the ocean, going inside AG, and then unfortunately everything stopped. So we have seen so many ships drifting, trying to stay as far as possible from any hot areas, even inside the sea. So not many ships were using actually inner anchorages. They were preferring to drift outside close to now. So to answer the question, yes, we have seen the changes from Fujairah being the sub-bunkering port, handling almost 7 to 7.5 million tons a year. We have seen this ship going to number one place for us, which we have noticed is Oman, starting from China's Suhar anchorage all the way to Salalah. Okay, we have seen insane demands there. I think the port authorities, as long as the physical suppliers were very proactive to relocate their barges, to try to work on a long-term sustainable cargo procurement plan to meet that demand. So we have never really feel that there is an issue. The other two areas which really benefited from such kind of situation was Pakistan, Karachi, and reading through the shipping news, Port of Karachi announced that they have reached the highest ever months of supplying bunker to ships. Okay. We are trying to investigate what figure exactly, what kind of quantities have been supplied. Still, it is very hard to reach that, but that kind of news itself, it tells you a lot. Then in India, especially West Coast ports, and let's segregate this disruption period to two. The first 2 weeks from 21st of December, let's say till 14th of March, the first 2 weeks since this disruption started, and the second 2 weeks, the second half of March, basically. The first 2 weeks, it was more like panic. Everyone is trying to fix everywhere. Every day you are getting questions, no certainty whether they will take or they can start fixing bunkers or not. Owners, operators are working on the rerouting. And if your loading was from inside of AG, for example, okay, now it's not happening anymore. What is the other options? Where are the other bunkering alternatives? We have seen, of course, drastic number of cancellations, quantity amendments.
Of course.
I will say it was a chaotic period for us. That the second half of March, I think people realize that this disruption is going to stay here for long. Then I would say that physical suppliers started to think proactively, and this second half of March where India actually benefited, because the first 2 weeks, the Indian government decided to really focus on domestic strategic supply, keep any gas oil, for example, for emergency use inside the country. So they were not welcoming selling gas oil for foreign-run ships that much. We have seen most of Indian West Coast ports all the way from Kandla, Mundra to Mumbai, dry most of the time, all the way down to Kochi. Okay. But then the second half of March, we started seeing that, no, okay, the availability is there is more flexibility in terms of supply logistics. So this is the way we have seen it. Nevertheless, to say that Fujairah Khurfahan itself, okay, they never stopped offering. Actually, the availability of the product, the stocks was there. The physical suppliers were operating as much as they can. Yes, there were challenges of AIS and GPS spoofing, for example. That was a major safety challenge. Okay, of course, ships are importing AIS positions, which they are actually not in. Okay, bunker barges are approaching ships, bases coordinates. So we started to see how physical suppliers to adapt this new changes.
Of course.
Okay, coordinates were being shared on emails. Okay, rather than just with your AIS and checking where is the ship anchored and then approach it.
Yeah.
So for Fujairah itself, the availability was there. We have done bunkers there without any issues. Okay. However, yes, it of course not as it used to, especially that the critical factor affected the supplies there was the additional war risk premiums, which reached 5% in so many cases, 5% of the total asset value. That makes a package a call only already overpriced by at least $3,000 per metric ton if you are bunkering 1,000 tons for a tip hard tanker. That is how we calculated it. So, of course, in addition to the exaggerated price, the significant increase of market prices around the world, okay, you put also the additional risk premium that made Fujairah unattractive during this period of time to regain quickly this position and start seeing more activity. However, now I think things are stabilizing. We start seeing volumes are coming back again. Now plan B is clear, So still, general, everything happened. All the significant price increase, it remained one of the most competitive places to fix marine fuels among all the neighboring countries.
Yeah, big changes in a very short time. Now, obviously, you've been in the industry now for, I think, 2 decades, and you've seen a few disruptions, in this part of the world. Could you give us a sense of the scale? How much bigger is this than previous incidents in your experience?
I think, yes, maybe it's a geopolitical conflicts can and will always happen. Like we have not too far the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, for example. Of course, that was the first time for me to see crude prices touching 150 or maybe above 150. Really, we have seen how markets got disrupted. That's the Middle East conflict. has its similarities with the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, but also I believe that the market has adapted those changes very fast compared to the Russian-Ukraine. I think whomever into bunkering industry has trained well basis what we have seen during the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. So it was easier for the industry to adapt. It was easier for shipping partners like charterers, operators, ship owners to quickly work on reroutes. I think the hit we are seeing, it is less than what we have seen with the Russian-Ukrainian conflict has actually started.
Okay. Now, clearly with the Suez Canal being closed, we're seeing more ships than usual rerouting around the Cape of Good Hope. In your experience, how should ship owners be adapting their refueling strategy if they're going to be rerouting around the Cape of Good Hope?
Yes, I fully agree with you with Red Sea situation along with the Strait of Hormuz. We have seen, of course, one of the main locations which benefited out of that was Singapore. If the ship is going mid-voyage to take bunker in Fujairah, continuing her route to Americas, for example, through Cape of Good Hope, we have seen bigger volumes in Africa, no doubt. However, it always comes with a price because looking into Africa's supply chain when it comes to bunkers, speaking about East Africa, for example, okay, what do you have seen in terms of professional service, on-time service, which you normally get in Singapore or any other bunker ups? You do not expect the same to happen in other locations, especially within Africa. So our rule was basically to ensure that our customers are in line, are aware with what they are going to see there. Because we were very clear with them that, for example, do not expect 4 hours waiting time to get a bunker bottom what you normally get in Singapore. Okay, no, some locations supply is basically daylight. In most of the cases, supply starts to fair weather conditions. So delays is there, for example. And this is a patch we can do in such situation because anyway, it was like that. Okay. Now we are speaking about double, if not triple volume. Okay. All of a sudden came to Africa. Yeah. So with limited infrastructure, it is very hard to act as a quick replace for such kind of volume. There are some places which is absolutely professional. We speak about Portuguese, for example. We speak about Mozambique, we speak about South Africa, of course. One of the main areas actually benefited in terms of volume, on volumes from Richards Bay, Durban, Cape Town, Algoa Bay. So I think that yes, Africa benefited out of that. Mainly East Africa, what we have seen compared to West Africa. And our duty here was to, as I told you, to share as many information, to be as transparent as we can with our clients to give them the full image, especially that before this destruction, before this Middle East crisis actually starts. Unfortunately, bunkering industry was so simplified into the minds of the buyers that it is mainly connected to the distrust. Right. So we have to change this perception. Yeah, definitely. It is not always the lowest price. It is not always the lowest price. Delay has a price. Quantity has a price. Quantity verification has a price. I hope that in industry or whomever interested into bunkering, especially in the procurement side from end buyer point of view, that they understand it is not always the lowest price. Okay. You have to have full information about the location where you are planning to take bunker. We rarely offer one location. Now, because of this situation, we are always giving alternatives. We always ask about routes, because you may miss one or two ports here in between, commercially more competitive than the other points which you are planning to fix.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a tight market, there are always trade-offs that have to be made, but these, are very important points, about the kind of supplier you choose. Now, you mentioned fair weather a few seconds ago. Thinking about more normal times, how much do changing weather conditions affect where you choose to bunker or affect bunker availability?
It, it very much affects bunker. However, very little pays attention to such kind of detail. Speaking about Africa, for example, okay, if we take West Africa, okay, and let's talk about Gulf of Guinea, for example, where most of the bunker marine fuel supplies are happening off port limits. We speak off port limits. It can be from 40 nautical miles apart from shore up to
Long way.
260 nautical miles. Okay, so you are already exposed to severe weather conditions.
Yeah.
But the supply locations in this area is pretty much near to each other. If you tell me Abidjan, I can give you, for example, of Abidjan, I can suggest you Lomé. I can suggest you Angola, Luanda. I can go all the way with you up to off Dakar, for example, Cape Verde. I can go down with you south further south to off Walvis. Okay. However, commercially, of course, each port is being priced differently. Okay. Then we try to explain that, okay, if you want something, okay, a store, you are exposed to bad weather, which can affect the supply schedule. You can wait 4 hours, 5 hours, or you can wait 5 days. So this information, I think our duty is to pass it correctly to the eyes, not to scare them, but to prepare them to what they are going to expect. So yes, to answer your question, of course, fair weather has a drastic effect on the supply timing specifically. Apart from the timing, okay, how long or when you expect supply to take place, whether you are expecting a drastic delay or not. Let's speak about quantity in case if you are taking a ship sounding, for example, in a rough sea where the wave height is more than 6 meters. Okay, how do you expect to take correct measurements? It is affected. That's why we are always trying to promote, it's a meter burst fitted. It's much better for you in such kind of situation rather than taking sounding, putting your the safety or your crew in danger, moving from the mothership to the bunker burst to take sounding and verify the quantity. So yes, of course, weather is very important in our industry. We cannot neglect that.
Yes, yeah, very true. And obviously, in times of supply stress, there are always rumors about lower quality operators who perhaps offer a great headline rate, but the quality of the fuel they provide is not as good as you might expect from a quality buyer. Is that something that you've heard about happening this time? And what kind of things? What are the warning signs that buyers should be looking out for when they're choosing a supplier?
Absolutely. And let me tell you, this is our day-to-day struggle to try and explain that. Again, the lowest price does not necessarily mean that you are fixing a great deal, getting one price, much, much, much lower than its actual value. It does not mean that you win. No, actually, maybe you win the price battle, but you lose on many other battles, which you will realize after that. So yes, absolutely. Let me highlight something. Bunker industry, ever since I joined this industry, before that I was a chairman for since 2005. Okay. Bunker industry was very sophisticated industry. It does not really accept newcomers that easy. We speak about quality, we speak about quantity measurement, quality of fuels. 2020 we introduced new products. Now we are speaking about biofuel, alternative fuels. It is very sophisticated industry that it is not easy being outside of common just industry, at least before shipping. Unlike what the reality tells you, especially after the Russian-Ukrainian conflict has started and we have seen the excessive amount of cash in the market that encourage it. So many non-shipping businessmen finding the bunkering as an opportunity to explore. And so, frankly speaking, that if you pull out and statistics about how many bunkering companies currently active, okay, let's say from 1990 to 2000, okay, actually to 2020, okay, versus how many companies are now active, you will find more than two. You know, that added so many unexperienced people into this field. So now who will sustain, who will not sustain? And unfortunately, as I explained to you now, because there are too many companies now involved into in our industry, that drag down the race of having inquiries and fixtures to only price, neglecting other elements such as quantity measurements. Am I getting actually the quantity which I'm paying for? The quality of the product, the terms and conditions. So yes, we have seen drastic increase in bunkering companies, especially in back-to-back segment. Most of the new companies, unfortunately, are funded or coming from business houses which have no relationship with shipping at all. So that made everything is dragged to only give me the lowest price. So to counter that, okay, and we always explain to our customers because we lose to such kind of funds, and we try. Okay, if we lose, but let's point out what kind of risks are you expecting to see. Then the first thing from our point of view is what terms and conditions are you buying. Okay,
of course.
bunker industry. Yes, bunker industry. I would say that every physical supplier and every trading house has their own terms and conditions kind of version. Then you have the Belco Baltic Exchange has Belco Debenzaler in the condition, which can be used, but at least know what terms and conditions are you buying. At least know your quality time bars. At least know your quality procedures. You know how to pursue a quality case. At least know your legal terms, which we have seen companies incorporated, let's say somewhere, and their applicable law is completely in a different continent. You know, but thereby how we are set up. And the issue is, you will not realize that unless you are facing the situation that makes you ask your counterparty, by the way, what is the terms and conditions saying? Then you realize, oh, okay, we haven't checked that. So terms and conditions, one thing. Recently, as I was saying earlier, that we have encountered a huge number of cancellations or quantity amendments because of changing rules. What is the cancellation process? We have, at the beginning of the crisis, we have seen so many physical suppliers saying it's all due respect to our existing terms and conditions. We have just changed our cancellation process to minimum $200 or $300 per metric ton. Some physical suppliers said that the cancellation clause minimum starting from $600 per metric ton. So that made us okay to offer the bunker price, but in the meantime, by the way, this is the cancellation clause was there because we cannot take. So supply terms and conditions, okay, cancellation clauses, any specific compliance. Compliance is something very interesting nowadays, especially when you realize that the first 2-3 weeks of the crisis, most of AG and the Oman Sea, okay, had an AIS spoofing.
Yes.
That reported almost every ship as sanctioned on other AIS platforms. So compliance check, sanction related screening, you know, is something very important. Cargo sources, you know, certificate of origins, and has the bars supplied any sanction assets before.
Yeah.
So this is what we are trying to explain to our counterparties. And this is in the meantime the checklists which we are doing when we are onboarding a new counterparty, whether a buyer or seller or a physical supplier. I think due diligence is now more important than ever to understand your counterparty, what kind of terms, what kind of cancellation you may encounter, what is the behavior towards claim, loss mitigation, because it will happen. Is this disruption? It will definitely happen.
Yes. Yeah. the market is moving so quickly, and whether it's bunkering the wrong fuel and ending up with an engine issue further down the line that leaves your vessel off hire, or it's, as you say, becoming involved in sanctioned business and potentially being, sanctioned by OFAC or the European Union and making it much more difficult to trade. Um, you mentioned a little bit in terms of the green fuels that are, attracting a bit more interest. There has been a few stories, I think, in the press about how in certain locations, biofuels have even been cheaper than traditional bunkers. Are you seeing more interest, more demand from your clients in terms of those green bunkers? Or is this more of a, flash in the pan for the moment?
No, we didn't really see any kind of increase in terms of volumes or demand or even queries about. I think that situation, everyone was trying to fix whatever available. We did still have an availability issue about biofuel. It is really available in Europe, really available in Far East. If we speak about Africa, it is not there. If we speak about Middle East, it is there on spot. Price-wise, we also have to keep in mind that biofuel, okay, it is actually a blend of a traditional fuel. So if traditional fuel is going out, that means that biofuel is highly likely will go up. Okay.
Right.
So
Yes.
this is one thing. Okay. The other thing, if we speak about other alternative fuels, which are not bio, let's speak about methanol or LNG for example. Yet there is a considerable uh, volume being produced from Middle East refineries, which got affected in a way or another. So is it a sustainable model in such kind of time? We haven't seen high demand. I don't think it is a sustainable model nowadays. Okay, I think nowadays everyone is only caring about just give me a few, let me say.
I'd like to end on, a slightly more forward-looking question. Now, if you were, a ship owner's shoes right now, what would you be doing to develop a more resilient bunkering strategy if this disruption in the AG continues longer than we all hope it does?
We have been asked this question from a few of our clients as well, and we are trying to also be as fair as we can because it's a great advantage for us. We can capitalize on that and convey this with something which we see in practical. So we suggest that stage to stay short rather than thinking long. That forget about the fuel prices in 1 or 2 months. Okay, whether it can go up or not. If you have a voyage, and if I am a ship or I have a voyage on my point A loading, point B, this product is well identified, and the fuel price at the moment I'm fixing the cargo makes me make money. Okay, doesn't affect my profitability of this week. I will immediately fix it. Okay, rather than taking that chance, take a position, fix the cargo or take the freight, keep the fuel exposed, and then tomorrow morning we've seen in one day crude prices are up $10 and again lower $10 in the same day. Okay, the crude prices affect bunker prices. If you speak $1 up in per barrel in Brent, this is roughly $8 per metric ton in VFS. Does the market actually applying this formula? No. We try to connect the prices we have seen and connected with any index. Okay, we spoke to Arcos. We are in touch with S&P. Okay, we try to connect this. Okay, this is your assessment. Okay, but with what we are seeing is completely different. Okay, if you see that the market has moved on a day-to-day basis plus 20, we are seeing plus 100. Okay, so it was very unpredicted. Tried with him, all related stuff. We couldn't. That's why we went to our clients and said, okay, listen, if your cargo based on the current fuel price makes you make money, just fix the bunker. Don't take the chance because no one knows what would be cheaper. So we always suggest stay short, okay, as much as you can. Avoid long breakup. If you are a contractor by freight, you want to take, you want to lock the bunker basis fixed future prices. Okay, you are happy to assist you. If you want to look formula floating prices, we are happy to assist. not try to avoid nowadays. I see customers also are like ship operators are trying to avoid being long exposed in terms of rates. And from what we have seen is ships roles are getting shut rather than this long haul we used to see. No, we are seeing more that we are seeing more of the same ships which we are familiar with are trading in the same areas basically.
AB, thank you. This has been a really useful guide to how bunkering decisions change when a routing disruption forces operators into less familiar territory. The clear message is that resilience comes not just from finding fuel, but from understanding the local market, choosing the right partners, and planning with more discipline. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe in the link below, and you can find out more about Sing Fuels in the comments where we'll share a link.